There we go. There may be some people that are hopping on over the next few minutes. So what I'd like to do is, it's very important when you're in this program to know your peers. Here comes everybody. It's very important for you guys to know your peers, right? So that not only am I a resource, but your peers are also a resource for you. So one of the things that I would like to do is to just have everybody introduce themselves real quick. This does include everybody that,
on an actual like training class. Jesus, okay, I was gonna.
Okay, so this does include everybody that's online. I would like for you guys in the room to introduce yourselves, and then everybody online to just introduce themselves, so you can start to get familiar with the names of the new agents in our office. These are your peers that are kind of in the same place that you are, and maybe you guys can kind of partner up as you get to know each other and kind of create some accountability between you. I'm also going to be working on pairing people up with accountability partners as well. Plus, we're going to need to match you guys up to start doing the well, the case studies are independent, but the video recordings of the you giving the listing presentation and giving the buyer's presentation. So that's going to be part of the curriculum that's getting rolled out. So let's go ahead and start. Would you just tell us first name, last name, just like fun fact about yourself?
Okay, my name is fun fact would be I like to travel with my family, so we do a lot of traveling.
Favorite place to travel?
Favorite place to travel, Cocoa Beach.
Okay. Cocoa Beach, nice. Okay, so we're doing just a quick, everybody get to introduce themselves. So Kenya Boone loves to travel, favorite place is Cocoa Beach, Florida. Mr. Richard? Okay, Richard Greenlee, he's here in the room, and he's here all the time, grinding with his database and making his contacts consistently day over day. So, okay.
My name is Taylor Mead, and we're currently fostering a litter of kittens named after the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
That is awesome. Taylor Mead fostering kittens named after the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Okay. Okay, we got Matt Stewart, and he's an avid golfer. Okay. Rachel, go ahead. So you can see Rachel up on the screen here. So that's Rachel.
Good morning. My name is Rachel Lutt. I'm a brand new agent, and my former career, 2 decades as a violin teacher.
Oh, wow. I did not know that. Okay. Jennifer.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Swisher. I've been an agent for about a little over 4 months. My former career, I was 30 years in advertising and then medical sales. I'm glad to be my own business now, and my favorite places to travel is I'll go just about anywhere in Europe and any beach at any time.
Okay, I'm messaging Bryant because it looks like he's like stuck in space there trying to log in. Okay, we're going to introduce everybody, even if this gets repetitive at the beginning of each class, just so you guys can really start getting familiar with each other. I am Nicole Woodson. Fun fact about me is that I just found out 2.5 weeks ago that my puppy was expecting, and a week ago I found out, we thought that it was like 2 puppies, and then a week ago we found out that it's 10 to 12 puppies. So I'm about to have 10 to 12 puppies running around any day now, a Cane Corso or an Italian Mastiff. So
oh, wow.
yeah, so not little puppies, right? And so she is currently with our friends because we do travel and we've been gone. So yes, we are anxiously awaiting the text message that it has begun, because it could be any time now. Okay, Kuhn, are you there? Oh, Kuhn, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, we're just asking everybody to introduce themselves and tell them one fun fact about yourself. So we can see your picture on the screen. Would you just introduce yourself and tell us one fun fact about you?
Now I have to think about the phone. My name is Kuhn. I joined Keller Williams in about April of this year. One fun fact about me, let's see. I wasn't born here. I was born in another country.
What country?
In China.
Awesome. What part?
It's about like east, so Shanghai area.
Oh, okay. Very interesting. All right, Bryant, you are in and you are on the spot. We're asking for everybody to tell us their name and one fun fact about them. Bryant, are you there?
Sorry, I just got my audio working.
You're good. There's Bryant.
Hello.
Tell us your name and one fun fact about you.
Oh, Bryant Calloway. I guess I'm 23 years old.
He's our baby.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll take the bait.
Okay. All right. So I just want you guys to get to know each other and not just come to class and not speak and get to know each other. So obviously I encourage everybody to be here in person. I appreciate everybody that's here online and in person, but truly being here and being able to connect with your peers will take this to the next level for you. So thank you guys again for being here and being present and also being here via Zoom. Okay. I've got people jumping in. So there's Andrea. This is Andrea Foster jumping in. So we're going to stop with the introductions and get going with the class itself. I really wanted to spend some time today covering something that we are seeing a lot of, and that is counteroffers and contingencies. So let me first poll the room or online. Just say yes if you have. Has anybody in this group done a counteroffer?
Yes.
Andrea. Okay. Anybody else in this group, have you dealt with a counteroffer?
Yes.
Personally, yes. Professionally, no.
Okay. So you did it on the when you were buying or selling side, but not
Correct.
as a realtor. Okay.
Correct.
And then has anybody dealt with a contingency? Richard has. Okay. Anyone else? Have you dealt with a contingency?
Yes, but same thing on the personal side, not professional side.
Okay, perfect. So these are things that we deal with continually in the business, and they're a little tricky if you don't know the ins and outs of them. So I want to just start the conversation with that today. So first, let's talk about counteroffers, okay? And then we're going to progress into contingencies. Two totally different topics, but they are supplements to our purchase contract. Let me add one thing in here so you guys can see this contract of sale. Here we go. Okay, so when we're writing a contract and we have a contingency that is tied to that contract, do we know the first indication that there is a contingency with this offer? If we're like the listing agent and we receive an offer, where would we know that there is a contingency tied to the offer that we are receiving?
On your first page that has your acknowledgement of and disclosures
On your first page of what?
of your offer.
Okay, so this is the first page of the offer, the acknowledgement and confirmation of disclosures.
Okay, on your second page, you have the sell
yeah.
buyer's property presently under contract or sell buyer's property not under contract.
Right, so technically it's the first page of the real estate residential sale contract, right? So this is page 1, as we can see at the bottom. But again, when we receive our contract, it's typically the acknowledgement and confirmation page comes first, and then the contract of sale comes second. right? So it's technically the second page in the attachment of documents, but page 1 of the purchase contract. So technically, yes, Andrea, you were right. And it's right here, the sale of the buyer's property presently under contract, or sale of the buyer's property not under contract. Okay, so when we check one of these boxes, what does that mean as far as the contract packet itself? The set of documents that are delivered with the contract. What does that mean?
The contingencies are something that has to happen within a certain time period for the contract to actually be executed.
That is correct, and as far as what the contingency is. But when I check one of these things, one of these 2 items, what does that mean for the contract packet, the paperwork itself? It says it right here at the top. Right here, right?
Yeah.
It has to have an attachment.
Oh, I see.
Got it? Anything that is checked here must have an attachment. This is not just I check this and we're good. Okay? Anything that is checked here, whether it's your financing supplement, whether it's your HOA supplement, whether it's just a blank supplement with additional verbiage, or the contingency supplements, anything that has a check mark here must have an accompanying attachment. And if you have an attachment that's not listed here, then you can use this blank here to note that, okay? So please just note that when you receive a contract as a listing agent, or when you're preparing a contract to send to somebody, that you have to have an attachment for everything that is checked here, okay? All right, now, what is the contingency? Exactly what Jennifer said. It means that that other transaction must occur before this transaction can happen. Okay, so you have a buyer that must sell a house in order to purchase the next house that they're going to buy. Okay, now the 2 differences between the contingency presently under contract and the contingency presently not under contract. Can somebody tell me the difference between those 2?
The time frame that is likely to be taken care of. If it's not under contract, you're more than waiting longer to finish with everything. And so it might be more appealing to do something that's under contract versus something that's not under contract.
That is true, right? Because if it's not under contract, we don't have an end date, right? This could go on forever if that house doesn't sell. So if it's not under contract, we don't have a bona fide contract with a close date, right? Because we don't know when it's going to close. If we do have it under contract, then we have a close date and a target that things will wrap up. Okay. The second piece to that is, yes, there is some inherent risk with contingencies, right? Because that deal has to close in order for this deal to close. So if we get through the contract practice and process and that first deal busts, then this deal busts, right? Because they're tied to one another. One can't happen without the other. It doesn't mean that contingencies are a bad thing. They absolutely, a lot of our buying and selling here in Oklahoma City are contingencies, and that's totally fine. But just keep in mind that that's how that works. Okay, so when you are working a contingency, we need to make sure that we are staying in the loop with the person that has that other transaction to make sure that that's progressing as well, because that transaction is, our transaction is dependent on that transaction. Okay, so now we're going to look at the 2 different forms for contingencies. Okay, so we're going to look at the not under contract first. So this is going to be the form that, like, you get a buyer, they're super excited to go start looking at houses and they want to go start looking before theirs is under contract. Or we get the buyers that say, hey, I'm not going to sell my house unless I find a house that I love. Okay. Now we're going to work on some scripts around that here in a second, because there is some inherent risk for that buyer that they find the property they love and they can't get it because their house isn't under contract. So we'll talk about how to have that conversation with your buyers here in a minute. We're going to first just walk through the form itself. So this form is what you would attach if you select the not under contract contingency. This form means that I'm writing an offer for a property that I want to purchase. But in order for me to close on this, I must sell my existing home, and my existing home is not under contract. Now, the first part here is simply saying the contract is subject to the buyer to sell their property at, and this is where you put the property that they have to sell, the legal description or the physical address, okay? That goes in there, of the property that has to sell, not the property you're writing the offer on. The next piece is very interesting in the sense that this is stating that the buyer represents that the property is now listed exclusively for sale with a real estate brokerage or firm, or the buyer shall list the property with a brokerage or firm within 2 days of acceptance of this contract. And they shall basically work really hard to get it sold, okay? Here's the deal. What happens if you have a buyer who wants to buy a house, but they want to list their house for sale by owner?
Could be a long process.
Okay, is it allowed?
I believe so, isn't it? I don't know.
It says buyer shall list the property with a real estate brokerage firm within 2 days, or the property is listed exclusively with a real estate brokerage or firm.
Oh.
Right? So this is saying that if you want to enter a contingent contract, then you need to have your house professionally listed, and you need to work with that listing agent to ensure that you are doing everything you can to sell your property. Okay, that is important. So we will come across cases where we have a buyer that wants to give it a go on selling it themselves first to try to save some money. We just simply explain to them that our contingency condition does not allow for that. That the contingency condition for the state of Oklahoma does require that you have your property listed professionally with a real estate brokerage. Okay? Okay, now, section 3. This is pertaining to the seller. So we get, we are the selling agent, or I'm sorry, we are the listing agent of a property. We get a contingency that is not under contract. What happens to that listing once we agree to terms on this contingency? This is very specific to not under contract, for a contingency of a property that's not under contract. So what happens to that listing? We agree to terms. We have a signed contract with a contingency in place of a property that's not under contract. What happens to that listing?
Stays on the market.
Okay, so you say it's pending. Jennifer, what did you say?
It stays on the market.
Anybody else want to weigh in on that? Okay, it stays active on the market. Okay, seller's property shall remain on the market. They may continue to show and receive offers until the termination condition is removed. This is key. So when we're explaining this to our sellers and to our buyers, right, because we have to make sure that we explain this appropriately. When you're having this conversation with your seller, well, you know, sellers can often be hesitant to accept a contingency, especially if it's not under contract yet, because they're concerned about, you know, really getting their house sold. Well, how do I know that my house is going to sell if I'm waiting on them to sell their house? And what I always tell them is that a contingency that's not under contract could be considered as almost like a pre-negotiated deal. If they get their house sold, then we're moving forward with them. But if they don't, we still get to market your house and continue to show it and bring in potential offers and negotiate offers, okay? So it's not hurting you. You can still have open houses, you can still have showings. We're gonna treat your house and market your house as if we don't have a contract on it. What will happen, go ahead, what's your question?
Can you like accept offers?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can, he asked if we can accept offers, and that is absolutely true. So what happens with these types of contingencies are, we accept the contingency offer, we kind of hold that in our back pocket. We keep the house active on the market, we do open houses, we market it, we show it, we get another offer in from another party. We negotiate that offer, letting them know, hey, we have a contingency with a kickout clause. So we're gonna have to address that first. We negotiate that offer. If we come to terms on offer number 2, then we go back to offer number 1, the contingency, and say, we're giving you formal notice to remove your contingency. And they can either remove their contingency by withdrawing their offer, or remove their contingency by getting their house sold in that 24-hour window, or by saying, okay, I'm gonna buy the house without selling my house, because some people do have that option, right? So they get then first right of refusal, almost, the first offer, right? And some have no choice. They can't buy without selling, and their house isn't sold, so they have to release. Some have the choice, and it's just up to them how bad they want the house. They could be approved to buy without selling, but they wanted to write it as a contingency because they weren't 100% comfortable carrying 2 mortgages, but they want the house so bad that they're going to say, okay, we'll go ahead and just buy the house and keep our house on the market. Or number 3, their house sells during that kickout clause window, which I have had happen, and then they get the house.
You said that kickout clause window is 24 hours.
So we'll get to that section here. It's in this very next section. So this is section 4, and this is where it's addressed. Seller's demand to buyer to remove the termination condition. And this is where that is addressed. So when you're explaining this to your sellers, you're basically saying, like, we're going to keep this as a pre-negotiated contract in our back pocket. We're going to market your house as if it's not under contract. We can accept new offers. Nothing is going to stop us from selling your house. And if we get another offer, now we're going to follow the kickout clause process, and one of the 2 offers will come to fruition. Okay? Now, how do we explain this to a buyer? Because, okay, we explain this to a buyer by saying, okay, Mr. Buyer, we're going to write an offer on this house. I want you to understand that we're basically pre-negotiating terms for the purchase of this house. Just because we come to an agreement on terms doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to buy this house. There is a little bit of a risk concerned, or a little bit of risk involved, because if we're not under contract and another buyer comes along and you choose not to or cannot proceed with the purchase without selling your property, then we have to release our contract and let them move on. So we're just going to pre-negotiate this. You're kind of going to be first in line, first right of refusal. You kind of got your foot in the door, but just know it's not guaranteed until you can effectively remove that condition of the buying without selling, getting your house under contract, or releasing it. Does that make sense?
And at that point,
Can you speak really loud so people online can hear you?
At that point, is the pre-negotiated, I guess, aspect of it, is that like kind of, you go into it as a final negotiation? Or
Nope, whatever you agreed to, That's a great question. So he's asking, like, does any of the terms of the original contract change, or do we renegotiate anything? The key to this is the terms of that first contract do not change. Okay? Now let's be clear, because this happens. Say your sellers have accepted a contingency offer on a property for $200,000 with $5,000 in closing costs that the seller's paying for the buyer. And that's the contingency that's accepted. A new offer comes in from a different buyer for $210,000, no closing costs. It's a better offer. They accept that offer and activate the kickout clause. Your seller wants that new offer, right? Because it's better. It's netting them $15,000 more. If that first buyer removes their contingency and says, nope, we're going to go ahead and buy, you don't renegotiate. You've already agreed to terms with them. So it doesn't matter if you get an offer for $1 billion more, you're in that first contract.
So if they're capable of removing that contingency and proceeding with said offer, then I guess that would be the downside of accepting that, with the possibility of having other offers. With the
possibility of maybe getting a better offer? Yeah, absolutely. But you also know that you've got, so yes, so, right. So his comment was, so a little bit of a risk for a seller is accepting an offer with the possibility of getting a better offer still in play and not being able to proceed with the better offer. Absolutely, right? But it also, for your seller, is a bona fide offer in their pocket as well. So there's pros and cons to both, right? Just know that to tell your buyer or seller, just because a better offer comes along doesn't mean that that first offer automatically gets vacated. We still have to honor that if that first offer can remove their contingency, okay? Exactly, you accepted it, you were good with it, right? So it doesn't matter what else comes along. If that can come to fruition, that's where we're at, okay? So does everybody understand how that works and how you can have that conversation with both the buyer and the seller so that they're comfortable with moving forward? Okay, because I've gotten a lot of buyers like call me and say, oh my gosh, that house we just got under contract is having an open house this weekend. Yes, they are, because they have every right to continue to try to pursue selling their home. Okay, so have that conversation before you get that phone call so that they're not upset, frustrated, feel like something's happening that shouldn't be. Okay, okay, now let's go to section 4 and let's talk about the termination condition. So if this is the key to the termination condition. If the seller receives and accepts a valid offer without a contingency. So you can't accept, you can't accept a second offer that has a contingency not under contract. Okay? Right. Okay, so this is very clear here. So you have offer number 1, contingent upon the sale of their property, not under contract. Offer number 2 that comes in cannot be a contingency not under contract, even if it's better. It has to be a bona fide offer with a valid closing date. Now, it can be a contingency that's under contract, right? Because that is a consummated contract. It cannot be a contingency not under contract, okay? So if you are dealing with a buyer and they're looking at houses and they're contingent not under contract, does it make sense to go view a property that already has a contingency on it? Their offer can't be accepted. Their offer can't be accepted. Now, you can show them the house and explain to them that, hey, if you like this house, we're just gonna have to keep an eye on it until your house goes under contract, because we can't write an offer on it. It already has a contingent not under contract offer on it. Okay? Is that clear to everybody? Because that's where it can get a little confusing. So just keep an eye. If you're showing houses and it says contingency, know that if you're writing a contingent not under contract offer, they can't negotiate with you. Now, if you're writing a contingent and your buyer's house is under contract, then absolutely move forward. Okay? So this is saying that the seller would have to accept an offer that's non-contingent with their house not being under contract. So that means that you as the listing agent that has this contingent offer can receive and must negotiate and come to terms before you activate the kickout clause.
Nicole, what is the kickout clause? Is that number 4?
That's going to be right down here. That's what we're kind of walking through number 4 right now. So
Okay.
It says no less than 24 hours after delivery, right?
Okay.
So what we're saying here is that you get this second offer, you have to agree to that offer. It doesn't, the notification does not happen until that second offer is agreed upon by all parties. Once it is agreed upon by all parties, then and only then do you notify the first offer that we're activating the kickout period. Okay? Now, the kickout period here says that the buyer shall have until the date and time specified on the demand from the seller to remove condition, which is another form we're going to look at, which we must give them no less than 24 hours after the delivery of the notice to remove the termination condition. Okay, so this is saying that we must at least give them 24 hours from delivery. What is delivery? Okay, so yes, notification of delivery of the kickout clause, correct. But what counts as delivery? There is a form, but what is delivery of that form? How do we know when they, you know what I mean? Like so this is where it gets really sticky, right? We want to be good co-op agents, always want to be good ethical co-op agents. So I encourage you, and I'm going to pull up this other form so we can look at these together. Condition removal notification. Okay, I encourage you to, if you're ever in this in this situation, that you not only email them the form notifying them of the kickout clause, but that you also call them or text them or both, notifying them, hey, we just received another offer. I've sent you the condition removal form, so that they can't say, well, I didn't get it, or it was in my email, but I didn't see it. Like, please make sure that we're just being good, ethical co-op agents, okay? Make sure that when you send that to them, that you actually get confirmation that they have received it. Now, the 24 hours does start, or whatever time frame you put, that does start from the time that you send it to them. So we're going to look at that form real quick. And this is the condition removal notification. So this is this top part here. To Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, the undersigned seller, so of your property, is notifying you that we have another offer and we need you to remove. You have until, and this is where it must be 24 hours from delivery that you put here. Okay, you're filling this out right now. It is 10:05. And then you're gonna send this to your clients to sign and then notify the co-op agent. What time, if it's 24 hours, what time do we need to put on here? It's 10:05.
Like 12, maybe.
12, 11, okay. Here's what you have to think about. It has to be given to them with 24 hours notice. So you know your client, you know how quickly your client responds. If your client's at work and can't sign this until lunchtime or they get out of work, and then you have to receive it and then forward it on and then make sure that they get it. So you're going to have to gauge how quickly your clients respond, right? If your client's readily available, then absolutely you want to make this happen as fast as possible, because we don't want to risk losing the offer we just got, right? So know your clients, know how quickly they respond. Make sure that as soon as this happens, you tell them like, okay, I'm sending you the condition removal. I need you to sign it right away. Set the expectations so that we can move this process along quickly. Because if your sellers hold this in their email for 2, 3, 4 hours, and now we're not giving them 24 hours, we're breaching the agreement in the contract, okay? So just know and put a reasonable time. So if my sellers were quick responders, I would probably put 12 o'clock just to give them time. I would send it to them, and then I would send it to the other agent and text and phone call the other agent, as well as the email with the attachment. Do your due diligence, be a good co-op agent, okay?
Would that be something that can be taken care of? Like when you're discussing the acceptance of the other offer, like you said, you had to have an agreement kind of thing. If you've already in contact with your,
Yeah, you could have them sign this at the same time, 100%. Yes. Mm-hmm. Also keep in mind, if you're negotiating the new offer at 10 o'clock at night and your sellers sign this at 10 o'clock at night, because we've done it, is delivering this to the other agent at 10 o'clock at night and then making it 10 o'clock the following night fair? Is it legal?
yeah,
It's legal. It's not fair. How would you feel if you were on the other end, that if at 10 o'clock at night you got this and you choose to not work after 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, right? And then now you get it at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, and now you only have half of a day to deal with it, right? So just like I said, it's following the rules. Are we being good co-op agents? We ought to weigh that out, okay? So make sure that we're giving them a true 24 hours to handle it, okay? You would want that same respect. Yes?
We need to have the new buyer sign before we send it to the agent.
The buyers don't, you mean the contract?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm removing this, we're good at our person sign before we send it to the agent.
Okay, so who signs this is the sellers of the property, and then the buyer's agent of the original offer.
We need to balance our seller sign.
Yes, yes. So right here, it says seller's signature, and then receipt is either by the broker of those agents, or the realtor of those agents, or, sorry, I'm scrolling too fast, or the buyer of that property, that initial contingency, okay? So this is how you activate that 24 hours. Now, in response to that is this bottom piece. So now we send them the removal condition. They're notified of that 24 hours. This bottom piece comes into play. Okay, and so the one of two things, the buyer is saying they're removing the condition by either they have received a contract to close on their property subject to no other conditions besides inspection and financing, or they are able to buy the house without selling their property. And if you get this back with either of these, then we're in contract with that first offer. Okay? So this second half of the form is also used when we're not in that kick-out period. So say your buyer has a contingency on a property and that listing did not receive another offer and your buyer's house gets under contract, then you, as the buying agent, send this bottom half. We don't fill out the top half. We send just this bottom half saying, yay, we're removing our condition. We're proceeding with the purchase of your home. and we're either buying it because our house is under contract, or we're buying it because we're able to buy it without selling or choosing to proceed. Okay, so this bottom half can be used in one of two ways. And that is to respond to the 24-hour kickout clause, or to just say, hey, we're ready to proceed with closing. Okay? Does anybody have any questions around the contingency not under contract? Because I want to move on to the next one. I just want to make sure, because this is the most confusing of everything that we're going to discuss today. So I wanted to give us plenty of time to do that. Everybody's good?
Nicole,
Yes.
I have a broader, more general question, maybe.
Yes.
I still don't know where to find the entire contract. I've been able to look in the DocuSign, but all of the forms I can find in there say sample on them. Is that
You're looking in the wrong spot. I'll show you after class.
Okay.
And if people want to hang out and see that, we can do that, but I'll show you that. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So this is the contingency. Okay. So, and then here it just says failure to remove it will automatically become null and void. So we don't have to get a formal response back once that time lapses and you pass the time that's noted here. It automatically vacates that first contract. So we don't have to get like a release signed or anything like that. Okay. It automatically vacates that contract. Okay. So that is not under contract. Now, under contract is way less complicated than that. And let's just look at that. So this, I'm sorry, let me go back here. This is going to be.
Just what you said on that not under contract, once the seller sends that contract of notice of another contract with the kickout clause, they don't hear back from the buyer at all in that timeline. It's null and void anyway. They don't ever, okay. All right. That's what I thought. I just want to make sure.
Yes, it is null and void. Okay. So now we receive an offer and it's sale of buyer's property presently under contract. This one right here. Okay. So this is the form that must accompany it. And it's pretty short, sweet, and simple. All it's saying is I'm informing you that yes, I'm under contract for writing you an offer for your property. And in order for me to buy your property, I have to sell my property located at, and you put the address there, which is presently under contract for sale. And please note here, a copy of the contract is attached. Okay, so when we have a contingency, we must send them the contract that the property is contingent upon. Okay, bless you. Now, can this be a for sale by owner that's under contract? We got one yes.
I'll say no.
Okay, we got devil's advocate saying no. Can this be something that's for sale by owner that's under contract?
Probably. Under contract, it's already.
Yes.
Yes, it can, right? It's already under contract. We don't care how it's under contract. It's under contract. Now, my asterisk to this is your sale is contingent upon that sale, which is for sale by owner. Hopefully there's a realtor involved in one side or another, because for sale by owners have no clue how to navigate, in most cases, the contract process. Okay, so that could be leaving a little bit of risk exposure to your sellers if they don't have somebody helping them get that to close, because your deal is contingent upon that closing, right? So navigating appraisals, inspections, TRRs, title, all that good stuff, making sure that the lender's progressing and getting things to closing, your deal is contingent upon that. And if there's not a realtor on the other side, ensuring that's happening, it can leave a little risk on your deal, but it's totally allowed. Okay. And you must get a copy of that contract. What if that property's out of state? We see this a lot, like somebody's moving here, buying a house, and their house in Ohio is under contract, and it's contingent upon that selling. Totally not a problem, right? But we still need to contact that agent in Ohio who has nothing to do with this transaction and get a copy of that contract, or we need to have those buyers get us a copy of that contract. We still need a copy of the contract, okay? Another thing to just be aware of and to look for when you're accepting a contingency under contract is look at this part of their contract. If it's a contingency that's under contract, then we know we're at least 2 down the line. Not a big deal. Again, just a little riskier. A lot of you have probably heard me say this. My very first deal ever in real estate, it was a contingency 5 deep. And I was the last 2, 4 and 5. Okay, it's possible, but that just means the first house they were buying, they had to sell their house. The second house, they had to make sure that first house sold before they bought. The third house had to make sure their house sold before they bought. And then I was the 4th and the 5th because my person was selling and then buying. Okay, so it can get really twisted in there. It's high risk. We've got to make sure every domino falls in order for us to close. Okay. I wouldn't discourage it, but just be aware of the inherent risk behind us. Also be aware when you are in a multiple offer situation, this may be way better offer than everybody else, but weigh the risk that comes with the offer. So it's not just dollars, right? It could be the risk with the offer as well as the dollar value of the offer. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, so you're saying really on the original offer to a list and the offer comes in and it has a contingency of presently under contract, and they have to send a copy of that, check the contingencies on that, and just kind of on down the line before your seller even originally accepts the offer.
If you are the first and it backs, like in the offer you receive is contingent and that offer has a contingency marked, you as the agent that far down the line, you're not going to get a copy of all of the contracts previous, right? But you just need to be aware and ask the questions like, okay, I see that your offer that you sent me is a contingency. What is the offer before that look like? Is that a contingency? Like, how deep are we in this? Just be aware. You're not going to get all the levels if it's like a back to back to back, right? But you'll just get the one that's tied to yours.
Okay.
But ask the question, know what you're dealing with. Also know, because if they're all closing back to back the same day, I mean, literally when this happened to me, we were at the title company all day. It was 5 deals. Each deal takes about an hour. Right? So it was back to back to back. Now I didn't have to be there till the last 2 hours, but I'm like checking in, making sure 1 closed, 2 closed, 3 closed, and now mine's closing, right? Just know what you're dealing with. Do the due diligence, explain what's going on to your sellers so that they're not blindsided if something happens. I absolutely would not discourage them. Just make them aware. Communication is key, okay? And like I said, when we're looking at multiple offer situations, if you've got 4 offers to choose from, or even 2 offers to choose from, and this one is the highest one, that's great. But if the other one has no contingency, or maybe just a contingency of 1 deal, like maybe that one is better. Just do your homework and present accordingly, okay? Okay, so this contingency is super straightforward. It is literally, we're contingent upon the sale of this property selling, and here's when it's supposed to close by. And then it just states that if, you know, it doesn't close, if for some reason that first deal does bust and this doesn't close, then the earnest money is refundable to the buyer because it is contingent upon that, right? So the buyer would get their earnest money back. Okay, that is it with contingencies. This, like I said, this one's easy. The other one is where it's kind of a tangled web, okay? Are we clear on this contingency? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, now we're going to move on to the beloved counter offers. I don't think she's on the line. I had an agent in our productivity group calling me this weekend discussing this because her co-op agent was improperly filling out the counter offer. Actually, I'm going to do something. I want to show you these just so we're clear. Let's see here. FHA loan, conventional VA loan. Okay, I'm pulling these finance supplements in just so you can see it. Okay, so buyer's counter, seller's counter. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through this. So the counter offer form is often misunderstood in how to appropriately complete. Okay, so you receive an offer and your sellers want to counter that offer, or your buyers submit an offer and you receive a counter offer from the sellers, right? How do we interpret and how do we appropriately fill out the counter offer form? Okay, so the top is simply the date of the counter offer. This is simply the legal description of the property. This is the physical description of the property. And this is the buyer's names. Very straightforward, okay? Contract of, this here now just says, where appropriate, reference should be made by number or specific paragraph of the contract or financing supplement, which is amended or modified. Please number each item. Okay, so we are only addressing areas that are amended or modified. So if I want to send a counter offer changing the purchase price of a property, what do I do?
You would put in the new price or the difference between the previous offer.
Don't make it confusing, right? Just the price. Okay, let me go back and add this to what we have open so we can see this. So seller's counter, buyer's counter. Okay, I want to open all these so you can see them. Okay, so it says we need to reference the part of the contract that we are amending or modifying. Okay, so in this case, we are modifying the purchase price. So our offer, let's just go with our offer was written as $200,000. And then in the financing supplement, it said pay $5,000 towards the buyer's closing costs, prepaids, and escrows. So in contract of sale, we are changing the purchase price and countering the purchase price. So I'm gonna go all the way down to the contract of sale. The purchase price is called out in section 2. Okay, so we see uniform contract, residential sale, section 2, purchase price. Okay, we need to specifically call this out. So when we go up here, we're gonna put 2, purchase price shall be, and we're gonna counter at 205. Now, what else can we put in this section? Like, because this section is addressing anything that you want to counter in the purchase contract.
Closing costs.
Not in the purchase contract. Closing costs are in the financing supplement. We have a whole section right here for the financing supplement. What other things are negotiated in the purchase contract? Closing date. Yes, we can counter closing date. We could only counter closing date, right? You don't have to counter a purchase price to send a counter. You can simply counter the closing date. What else can we counter?
Earnest money.
Earnest money, correct. Earnest money. Earnest money is called out as part of the contract. You can counter earnest money. How much they're putting down. What else is part of the contract? Home warranties. Absolutely. You can counter that your seller does not want to pay for a home warranty in here. Okay. What about, like, they can write in the contract that, like, the refrigerator stays. It's part of the contract. So if you're countering it, it must be written in this section, contract of sale. So if they write in any inclusions or exclusions that all parties don't agree to, that's done here. So let's look at the contract itself and just walk through real quick. What can we counter? We can counter the purchase price. We can counter the earnest money. I've even seen counters changing the title company. Okay, I don't recommend it. The only time I would really advocate, say, like, that may be a good idea is if your sellers are buying and they already have a title company that it started at, and so we want to align them so we're not going to two different title companies on closing day. But I would explain, like, I'm only countering title company because of this, right? Not just because I want it to close where I want it to close. Okay, but yeah, you can absolutely counter the title company that it's closed at. You can counter the closing date. You can counter anything that's listed in inclusions or exclusions. You can counter the number of days for the inspection period, right? Sometimes, like, they want to get the inspections done quicker so that if for some reason the deal busts, like, we just have a shorter time to get that done. You know what I mean? Like, not normal, but I've seen it happen. We can counter home warranty. Home warranty. If they wrote in a home warranty and we want to counter it, we can counter it. If there's anything written in additional provisions, which is, you know, we usually don't see, but you can counter any of that as well. Okay. So those are the things in the purchase contract that you can counter. Now, home warranty is section 12. Inspection is section 7A. Inclusions are 4A and B. So really, when you're filling this out, you're going to want to reference it appropriately. So go back up here, say purchase price to be this, title, wow. Title company to be ABC title, closing date to be whatever, okay? You write that all here. This is under 2. If I'm countering the home warranty, was that 14? 12, B or C, and I would say seller shall not provide home warranty. Okay, so make sure, like, we're listing this out. I think the next one was section 4. We would put that up here just to be precise. For seller shall not leave refrigerator. Okay, you're going to list it out here. Reference the section of the contract listed out here. Now, down here, this is where we're going to talk about changes to the financing supplement. So first section is the contract of sale, the 6 pages of the contract. The financing supplement is simply just that. We're calling out differences in the financing supplement. So Let's look at the financing supplement. They all pretty much have the same thing, right? The address, the how much they're putting, how much they're financing, and then whether or not there's going to be closing costs. So in this case, this would say like seller to pay $5,000 toward buyers CC, etc. Right? It would say that here, right? So if we are countering that, then we would address that here. Okay. Now down here, same thing, right? This is the FHA loan. So if it's an FHA loan, we're going to put that here, and we're going to, and it's noting here how much they're paying. So this would say 5,000, right? And then if we're down here on the VA loan, it's the same thing. We're going to write the 5,000 right here, right? So if we're ever countering a financing supplement, then we need to make sure that we address that. So that is only done right here. So if the buyers ask for 5,000 and my seller wants to counteroffer and say, I'm only willing to pay 2,500 towards the buyer's closing costs, what would I put here?
Just that's what they are carrying 2,500 towards closing costs, or seller towards buyer's closing costs.
Right. Okay, so you would say sellers will contribute X amount to the buyer's closing costs. The thing is you'll want to reference the section. So it's a little different in each form. So in the conventional loan form, it's section 5. If we're doing a VA or an FHA form, it's 3B. And if you're doing a VA form, it's 4 or 3B as well. So just depending on what type of financing is, you'll just reference that section. So we'll just say it was the conventional. So we'll say 5. We'll say seller to pay 2,500 towards buyer's closing costs, prepaids, and escrows. Okay, so we'll put that there. So when I receive this offer, I see that they are countering purchase price, title company closing date, not leaving the refrigerator, not providing a home warranty, and only paying 2,500 towards closing costs. What does that mean for anything else that was written in the contract? Stays the same, right? It means nothing. So all other terms remain the same. You're only calling out the single elements that you are countering. Okay? Okay, so now your buyer receives this. Now my buyer says, okay, I'm good with 205. I don't care what title we close at. I can make that closing date, but I want a refrigerator, I want a home warranty, and I need $4,000 in closing costs. So they're accepting part of it, but not all of it. How do we write that? Mm-hmm. So that because we have our own, now we have a whole separate form for the buyer's counter to the seller's counter. Okay, so this is where we're gonna see. So this is the seller's counter to the contract. So we're calling out the differences to the contract. Now this piece is the seller or the buyer's counter to the seller's counter. So we're countering to this, okay? Because everything else in the contract is agreed to. We're only now negotiating these few pieces. Okay, so we're accepting the purchase price, we're accepting the title, we're accepting the closing. We're asking for the refrigerator, we're asking for a home warranty, and we're asking for $4,000 in closing costs. What do we write? Only call out the differences. Only call out the differences. So by you not calling out the 205, you're saying you agree to that. By not calling out the title company, by not calling out the closing date, we're saying we agree to that. Okay? Is that clear to everybody? So now we're only going to call out our differences. I am going to leave this video recording. We're starting a repository, and I'll leave that up for you, because just seeing this without explanation behind it can be confusing, right? Excuse me. Okay, so now we're the buyer's counter to the seller's counter, only calling out the difference. So where it says seller shall not, we're simply going to remove the not and say seller shall leave the refrigerator. And then I would say here, seller shall provide a home warranty. And I would go ahead and add the amount in there. Okay, just so it's clear, like that, because we're making changes, like I would put the amount in there. And then I would say here, seller to pay $4,000 towards buyer's closing costs, prepaids, and escrows. Okay, what does this look like? Does everybody get what we did? Only differences. So seller's counter, only differences to the contract. Buyer's counter, only differences to the counter offer. I promise you, if I receive 10 counter offers, 8 of them are written wrong. Okay? Most people will regurgitate everything. It's not necessary. You're only calling out the differences, okay? Now, if somebody does that, do we need to tell them, oh, you did this wrong, you need to go rewrite this? Not necessarily. Doesn't make it null and void, but this is the appropriate way to fill it out, okay? Now, everybody agrees to this. This is what the final signed, so look here, the seller signed this as their counter, and the buyers don't accept it, so we click modify if they're modifying. If they're rejecting, they just simply click reject and initial it and send it back. If they're modifying it, meaning they're sending a counter back, then you click modify the initial, and then we send this. So by them checking modify and initialing this, this is telling us there's another page to this, right? So then this is the second page. Now, all parties agree to this, and everybody signs here. Okay. When we send this offer, well, first of all, let me ask you, so what are the terms and conditions of this offer? What is the purchase price of this offer? $205. Okay. We're still closing at ABC Title, and we're still closing at this closing date. That's that, right? The refrigerator's staying, and they are paying for a warranty. The closing costs are $4,000, right? So it takes both of these pieces of paper to know that, right? So what does our executed contract consist of? What forms become the entirety of that contract? Both of the counter offers and the original contract. Okay, so this contract then must consist of the original purchase contract, the seller's counter, and the buyer's counter. Okay. Now, the debate that we got into this weekend with another agent, with one of the coaching group people that I was helping her through, was regarding who signs what. Okay. We need to make this very clear, because we do not want our clients, whether they're the buyer or seller, signing something inadvertently and having them agree to something that's not what we agreed to, right? So on a situation where we have these counteroffers, let's go to the purchase contract, the original purchase contract. Who signs the acknowledgement and confirmation of disclosures when there's counteroffers? Somebody, anybody.
Weren't the disclosures signed on the very first offer?
Well, when they submit, so when the buyers, so the disclosures, yes, the disclosure always is signed by all parties. I'm talking about what I have up on the screen, the acknowledgement and confirmation of disclosures. All parties, correct, yes. Because all this form is saying is that they have received disclosures, whether the property is built where lead-based paint is applicable, that the buyers have received the estimated cost to buyer and the sellers have received the estimated cost to seller. This has nothing to do with the specific terms and conditions of the contract. This is 100% of the time always signed by all parties, no matter what. Okay? On an agreed to contract, always signed by everybody. Okay? Now let's look at the purchase contract. So if we have a counter offer, who signs the purchase contract?
Well, all parties have signed the purchase contract.
No. If it's a counter offer, why would the seller sign it? If they're signing it, they're agreeing to the terms that are in it.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So whose signatures should appear on the original purchase contract when there are counter offers involved? Correct, the buyers. The buyers only, right? Because your buyers, you write the contract, your buyers sign it, you send it, okay? Now, we negotiate counter offers. The sellers never sign this, because if they sign this, they're agreeing to the terms that are in this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And if we have a counter offer, they're not agreeing to these terms. Now, they're agreeing to some of the terms, right? But they're not agreeing to the contract in the entirety. So the consummation of the contract comes from the signed counter offer. That's what makes the contract a binding contract, because it's an attachment to this, okay? So if there is a counter offer, the sellers never sign the original offer, ever. If they sign the original offer, they're agreeing to all of the terms and conditions of the original offer.
Regardless of it.
Right, they've signed it, they've accepted it. So you could have negotiated much different terms. If they sign this, that's a legally binding contract, okay? Now, let's go to counter offer number 1. So the seller's original counter. Whose signatures are on this? This is the seller's original counter offer that the buyers are going to counter. Who signs this? The sellers? Correct. Anyone else? Okay, you are correct. And the buyers must initial down here, noting that they are either modifying or rejecting this counter offer. So the sellers sign, the buyers initial if they're not agreeing. If they are agreeing to this, they sign it, it's the contract, it's this, you're good, okay? If they're countering a counter, sellers sign, buyers initial, you check modified, and now we go to the buyer's counter offer. Now we're at the buyer's counter offer. Now, okay, we're good. Everybody's agreed to terms. Who signs this? Both the buyer and the seller, because this is the final agreed to contract. Does that make sense? Okay. By all parties signing this, we are solidifying the entire contract in its entirety. Okay? Now, where even lenders have come to me and said, wait a minute, I need a signature on this with financing supplements. That's where a lot of debate goes around, because people don't understand this. And I've gotten into debates with lenders over this. So regardless of what type of financing they're doing, when there are counters, who signs the financing supplement? There's only one original offer, purchase contract. There's only one financing supplement, right? Because your counter offer, We don't rewrite the financing supplement. We're just calling out the differences here. So we never have to do a duplicate financing supplement. The original financing supplement is part of the contract, and the contingent and the counteroffer calls out the difference. So you never rewrite the original contract. You never rewrite the financing supplement. Because
the original financing supplement signed by both parties previously, or
do they sign it originally? What if they agree to all the terms in the financing supplement? They agree to the closing costs.
So one of them didn't sign it.
Okay.
They countered it.
Well, okay, so let's talk through this, okay? Financing supplement. Obviously, the buyer signed it with their initial offer. So we have the buyer's signature. What does this say right here? Down here in the bottom corner. In the event of a counteroffer on an OREC counteroffer form, the seller does not sign. So what is that? So what happens here? What if they agree to the $5,000 in closing costs? They're just changing something in the purchase contract.
Then they would sign.
You never ever sign the financing supplement as a seller if there is a counteroffer. Ever.
Oh, okay.
In the event of a counteroffer.
Not in the supplement.
What's
So it
that?
doesn't matter if it's in the financial supplement or the purchasing.
Correct.
portion of it?
In the event of any counteroffer, just as the seller does not sign the purchase contract, they do not sign the financing supplement. Ever. Okay? It is the same on every single financing supplement. Let's look here. Let's go down to the VA. In the event of a counteroffer, seller does not sign. Doesn't matter if we're not changing the financing supplement. If there is a counter, period, seller does not sign. Okay? We never recreate the financing supplement. We never recreate the contract with the new terms. We simply do a counteroffer. Okay? Now, let's look at the FHA form, just because this is a little different. So the top part of the FHA form, so this is page 1 of the FHA form, right? That's the standard financing supplement. And we have here signatures. It says the same thing. In the event of a counteroffer, seller does not sign. They do not sign that, right? The FHA supplement. The one piece to the FHA supplement is this bottom, real estate certification. What does this say? To be signed by buyer and seller, even if a counter is attached. So this is totally different. This one section from that double dark line down, this is what they call the FHA certification. And it's just stating that the agreement between all parties were entered into this transaction. Like, it's just certifying that these parties entering this transaction, there's no outside agreements or anything, like we're all agreeing to these terms and conditions. It's not, this is the FHA certification. It's not the contract itself, right? It's saying that we, the buyer, sellers, listing and selling agent involved in this transaction, certify that the terms and conditions of the contract are, to the best of our knowledge, the entire agreement between all parties, and that any other agreements, counteroffers, addendums entered to by these parties in connection with this are attached. That's all it's saying, is we are acknowledging that we're all on the same page, that there may be attachments, and they're all provided and included. Everybody must sign that. I don't know why the FHA does that. It's a federally backed loan, federally insured loan, so it's kind of an additional step for their protection. But on a counteroffer, sellers do not sign here. Everybody signs here. Okay? Are there any questions about this?
Yes, this is Jennifer, just so I'm clear, because I don't see the very top of this. So in the event the seller gets a contract and wants to counter, they've do not sign the original contract.
Nope.
They sign the counter,
Correct.
but they assign the original financial supplement, but do not sign any counter offer.
No. They never sign the financing supplement ever. So all the financing supplements say do not sign.
If there's the counter.
If
Okay.
there's counter.
Okay.
Right. So any financing supplement should only have the buyer's signature if there's a counter.
Okay.
In the FHA form, they will not sign the financing supplement, but they will sign this down here, the FHA certification. It's just an additional clause added to it, but it's not tying to the terms and conditions of the contract. Okay.
Okay.
What happened this weekend was one of our productivity agents here, she calls me and she's like, hey, we've agreed to terms on a counter, but the co-op agent is resending me a rewritten with the new terms of the contract financing supplement and telling me that we need to sign it. And so again, like, this agent thought that when you renegotiated terms, you went and redid the financing supplement as the part of the contract. You don't. The revision to the financing supplement is simply this financing supplement section of the counteroffers. You do not need to rewrite anything. Okay? Yeah, you only call out the differences. You don't rewrite the contract. And you only sign the final version that all parties agree to. Okay? That is the key. You only sign the final part that all parties agree to. Okay? Okay, last question regarding counteroffers, whether you're representing the buyer or the seller. So if I'm representing the seller in this case where we had the purchase contract, counter 1, counter 2, how many net to seller forms do I have? Why? Speak up so they can hear. He said 3.
Indicates a new contract.
Correct. A counter indicates a new contract.
Which means a new offer. And you had a new total.
Correct. So if you are representing the seller, you must do a net to seller for the original offer and any counter thereafter with the terms of that specific counter. Okay? If I'm the buyer in this case, how many estimated costs to buyers do I have? You have the purchase contract, the counter number, the seller's counter, and then the final buyer's counter that got accepted. So it is 3, okay? Each one of those is considered new terms and conditions of a contract, which we are required to provide an estimated cost to seller and estimated cost to buyer. So you will have to do a net sheet or cost to buyer sheet for each one of these counters or original offers, okay? Clear as mud, right? I promise you, when I got into this business, I joined a small independent brokerage. No one told me this. No one told me this. I had 0 training. Guess what, guys? Most of the people that you guys are going to be doing co-op sales with have never heard this before. Pretty scary. Okay? You guys are in a very unique situation being in here where that you have this opportunity to learn this, okay? And I'm not saying this just to kind of gloat on our office, because it isn't the same at every office either. I'm just telling you it's a reality. So when you're dealing with co-op agents, you're gonna have them send you things and you're gonna be like, what the hell? Like, It truly is the wild, wild west out there. And there are people doing things and they have no idea what they are doing. There are people in this office that don't come to training, that aren't hearing this, that are writing deals that have no idea what they're doing because they've never heard this. And if you weren't told this, would you be able to look at this and figure this out?
No.
Right. No, like you're trying to negotiate a counteroffer, you're trying to figure this out, right? It is important to participate. It is important to be engaged. It is important to be present during these classes because you are handling thousands of dollars for other people.
Yeah, like you said, that's just one type of action. What happens when you have 29?
Exactly. Exactly. Right? You have to pay attention to every detail, dot every I, cross every T. If you do something wrong, that could be a fine, but guess what? You get fined and our office gets fined. We all have to pay, right? Then our errors and omissions insurance goes up. Then it costs everybody in our office more money because you were negligent on something simple, right? Now, or it could be something inadvertently overlooked that could cause you to lose your license, right? Or you could get sued because you messed up and got your buyers locked into something they didn't agree to, or you missed a timeline in a contract and they wanted to back out and now they can't back out because you didn't inform them of a timeline that they had to adhere to in order to be able to do so. There is thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars at stake in this business. It is way too easy to get a license, and it is important that we learn the business so that we can properly handle our clients and their finances. That was my soapbox of the day.
So, yeah, I mean, you can just,
Scary.
in like telling them to sign on the wrong place.
Right.
Could have wrote that one. You know,
Oh, yeah.
for like $6,000
Mhm.
either way.
Right. You sign on the wrong line, they're agreeing to a contract.
Because you said, hey, this is where you're, and that's your job is to indicate where you
Yep.
do those kinds of things.
Okay, so I've got to tell this story. I have to, and you guys can disconnect if you don't want to. We got 3 minutes though, I'll make it quick. I wrote a contract for my buyer on a property with another Keller Williams agent, not in this office. The offer consisted of the purchase contract, the financing supplement. In the financing supplement, it said, so it was a VA loan. So we're here, VA loan, where you at? VA loan, right here, this little box. It said, seller shall pay $6,500 towards buyer's closing costs, prepaids, and escrows. All parties signed the contract. We never received a counteroffer. They agreed. Sellers were excited. Day before closing, settlement statement gets sent out. The agent calls me and says, why are there closing costs on this contract? We never agreed to closing costs. Let me pull up the contract. Well, co-op agent, section 3B of the financing supplement states that you guys agreed to $6,500 in closing costs and all parties signed. Oh my gosh, I didn't see that. I completely overlooked that. Now, granted, pretty easy to overlook, right? It's one teeny tiny little box on a 2-page document, $6,500. All parties signed.
Just because you don't know to look there, or just forget to look
Her
there.
sellers signed the contract. So her sellers, do they have some accountability in it because they signed a contract and they didn't review it themselves? Yes. But guess what? On her cost to buy or a net to seller sheet, she didn't put anything on closing costs because she didn't see it. So she didn't present it to them. So she's like, well, there's just no way that we can close on this. They don't have $6,500. I said, your commission's $5,000. It looks like you're bringing $1,500 to closing. Guess what? She brought a check to closing for $1,500 and didn't take a commission. She didn't have a choice. If her sellers wouldn't have closed, her sellers could have sued her. My buyers could have sued her.
And would that be like legality wise because of the non-presentation of it in the net seller sheet?
Technically, that's where it falls, right? Because she didn't present it to them. Now, there is some accountability on them that they signed a contract that they didn't read. Absolutely, right? Because you, as just a human being signing a contract, should read the terms and conditions of the contract. And it's our responsibility as realtors, page 1 of the contract. Where's page 1 of the contract? Got too many things open here. Page 1 of the contract, the acknowledgement and confirmation of disclosures, it says the buyer acknowledges that the estimated cost was received, and up here it says that the seller, or down here, I'm sorry, it says that the seller confirms that they have received here, the estimated cost to seller, right here, right? So she's saying, I've provided this to you. They're saying, I have received it. If she mispresented the information or the numbers, that does come back on her. $6,500 lesson. She worked that whole deal and lost $1,500, but it was way better than losing, you know, your license or getting a huge fine, right? Guess what? She's been in the business for 4 years prior to this. She's still in the business. I guarantee you she's never missed it again, right? Very expensive lessons. Now, is that going to come out of your pocket, or is it going to come out of your client's pocket, or our brokerage and yours, because you guys get fines? Like, these things are legitimately serious issues. Okay. All right. Now that I'm done with Scared Straight, everybody good? If you have any questions about this, let me know. If you're ever doing this, call me. Don't do it on your own. Do it. Send it to me, ask me to check it. I would love for you to try it first and then send it to me before you send it to your clients, right? That way I can say, oh, we missed this, or, oh, hey, you know what I mean? We can talk through it. But you always learn by doing it yourself first and then having a second set of eyes on it. Okay?
Great.
Okay. Rachel, are you there still?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we're meeting right after this. Just give me a second to get my laptop up, and then I'll
Sure.
text.
Do you want me to stay on this call?
Actually, just stay on here. I can do it in here. I'll clear the room out, and then we'll just do it in here because there's nobody else coming in here.
I'm just here.
Nicole,
Yeah.
After Rachel, I also have a question. So can I stay on as well?
Well, I'm going to be on with her doing her goal session, so that's going to take me a little bit. Can I call you when I'm done?
Yeah, absolutely. That's fine.
Okay, I'll call you. We have we're doing the goals setting for her, so it'll be just a little bit. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you guys. I hope that you guys took something away from this, and good luck.
Thank
All
you.
right. I'm going to stop the video now. Stop video. There we go. Okay.
Now, are the videos on
We're working. I'm working on. We're gonna be putting them. I'm gonna have a coaching repository, and I'm gonna separate them into videos from our class, contract training videos that I've done by myself, and all that. So yeah, I'm working on building that.
PDF form that I was talking about earlier. Is that what you look for next time? Not PDF. I'm sorry, DocuSign.
Oh yeah. How to access those documents in DocuSign? That was you, Rachel, that asked about where to find the forms in DocuSign?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Let me just hop there real quick.
You went to Command.
Yeah. Well, I always go from Command to get there, but you can get there directly from DocuSign too. But I always go from here. Creature habit. Okay. So. Oh, this isn't right. I don't want to go on. Okay. So, like, whether you're in Command or just directly in DocuSign, anytime to get to DocuSign from Command, you just hit Documents, and then I've got things in the way. Go to Transaction. This here links you to DocuSign. Now, you want me to remember passwords. Nope. I have all my passwords saved on my computer, so this is going to be fun. Yay. Okay, so if you're looking for documents in DocuSign, then once you're in the room for that transaction, so I'm in this transactions room, right? I hit add DocuSign forms. And this sometimes takes forever, especially when you're connected to Zoom. Okay, now we're here. Instead of being in DocuSign Forms library, go to DocuSign Forms group. This is our specific set of documents. Now, under DocuSign Forms, we have buyer, listing, miscellaneous. Under buyer, it's most of the standard forms you need for the buyer contract. Under listings, it's most of the forms you need for your listing agreement. If you can't find it in there, go to miscellaneous forms. This kind of pulls up everything, right? And then you can just type in here what you're looking for. So if I'm looking for a counter, I type counter, it'll pull those up. If I'm looking for condition, like condition, this pulls up anything that has the word condition in it. Where the struggle is you have to know what it's called, right? So if you're thinking I need a contingency form and you're searching contingency, all that's going to come up is the contingency addendum or the contingent removal of contingency, not the condition, right? So that's where you have to just learn your forms to know what you're looking for. Okay, so contingency, if you looked at the first page of the contract, it said condition, what did it say? It says a sale of buyer's property presently under contract. So I may say like under contract. If I didn't know the exact term, maybe that would get me. If I like, you know what I mean? Like just play with the words. If yeah.
Okay, then one last question. You went to command and ticket DocuSign. Do we already have a DocuSign account?
Yes.
It's on our password.
You should, yes, you should have all that. If you don't, we need to get with Wes, because what you really want, because you know, we have to, once we get everything signed, sealed, and delivered under contract, once you get everything signed, sealed, and delivered, and you have the final executed versions of your contract, you need to upload them download them into Command, right, for compliance. And if you don't link to the DocuSign from here, you just go to DocuSign separately, they're not going to talk to each other. Whereas if I wanted to add file here, I could just hit DocuSign and it's going to directly link me to this DocuSign for this contract. Yes. Like, but if I just went to DocuSign on my own, created a room, did my own thing, and I had the opportunity and I didn't use this go to transaction and connect them initially, then I'm gonna have to download them from DocuSign and upload them in here. If you do it this way, it creates a direct line for them to talk to each other per opportunity or per contract, okay? Okay. All right. We survived.
Thank you.
All right, I've got to do a one-on-one with Rachel. If you guys haven't gotten contacted by the intern here about setting up a one-on-one with me to set your goals, please just go to my booking link. There's an option for a 15-minute goal session. We can do it remotely, we can do it in person, but let's get that set up, okay? All right. Thank you. You too. It's good to finally meet you. All right. Okay. We are going to goals. Okay. If when you step out, if you wouldn't mind shutting that door, because I talk really loud. Very loud. Okay. Okay. Let me get in here so I can get you the form. Can you hear me okay, Rachel?
Yes, sorry, I keep you on mute because randomly it gets super loud in I don't have an office at home. It's just the middle of the house and it can be loud.
Okay, well, it's just you and I now. So this is something that most agents do kind of down the road as they get a little further in their into their career. What I'm encouraging people to do is let's start this early. Let's start
Sure.
really thinking about your real estate career as a business and not just as a you know, kind of job. We're just selling transactions and seeing what's happening. Okay.
Hobby.
I'm going to create a tab for you and we're going to walk through this. Now I'm going to tell you that for you and for most brand new agents that do not have a history, we're going to just use some of the standards, the standard conversions. Okay.
Sure.